Montel, I'm working with a ton of people with cancer, and I've learned so much about the power of CBD and THC in the body for people experiencing cancer. And I don't have the scientific ability to explain to people who are terrified of CBD, they think of it as a drug or whatever. As powerful as the medicine is, I really want people to understand in the scientific way, why is this so powerful in your body?
I think what people have to do is number one, get off of this 100-year-old fallacy that there's something wrong with cannabinoids. There was never anything wrong with the cannabinoids. Cannabinoids and what we call marijuana, which isn't really marijuana, cannabis is really the name of it. So let's call it what it is. Cannabis has been around and recognized as a medicine for over 3,000 years. First written about in the I Ching by the Chinese dynasty, long, 3,000 plus years ago. It has been published and documented in every cornucopia of medicine in history in every country in the world for its properties as a medication. And why? We found out, close to 20 years ago. I mean, one of the things that I said anybody who questions cannabis's efficaciousness is I say, well, then why would the United States government patent cannabis over 20 years ago? So the first thing that everybody should do that questions cannabis with you is you should direct them to US patent number 6630507. And in that patent, when they look it up, they can Google something called the abstract. And what is the abstract? The abstract is the paragraph that every patent has to have that writes and includes the verbiage about why this is such a efficacious or real thing. And the abstract that the US government wrote on cannabis over 20 years ago identifies CBD, because that's what the US government owns a patent on, is CBD, which is one of the multitude of cannabinoids that are in a cannabis plant. The cannabis plant, there are some who think that the cannabis plant has well over 260 cannabinoids. Here in the United States, we think it's well over 65, 67, somewhere around that. Canada, I think it's 260. Other places in the world think it's 260 plus. Those cannabinoids are constituent parts of the plant that all have varied efficaciousness for very medical things, or not just medical, but I'd say augmentative plant-based healing properties. Um, and when we look at them, why do they work in humans? Well, because human beings have in our body something that is inherently part of who we are, genetically made up. Every human being on the planet, every mammal on the planet has something called an endocannabinoid system. It's a series of receptors that are part of our nervous system. You can call it, if you will, for lack of a better term, a secondary sympathetic nervous system that is inside of our body, in every organ that we have. We have what's called CB1 connectors in the brain, CB2 connectors in the peripheral arteries, the skin, and in the rest of the body. Each one of them actually has the ability to be, it's called agonized. What that means is stimulated by plant-based cannabinoids. And when they're stimulated by plant-based cannabinoids, they create in us endocannabinoids. These are things that if you had never used cannabis in your entire life, they could draw your blood and test it, and your blood would have in it these things that we create. They're called endocannabinoids. And specifically, it's one is called anandamide, the other one is called 2-AG. These are chemicals that we make that send signals through the body retroactively up to the brain, going in the opposite direction. Our brain sends signals down. These send signals back to the brain. Anandamide basically is the one that when you, let's say you're walking at night, you go into the bathroom and you stub your toe really hard. Your toe starts screaming, ah! And the brain sends all kinds of white blood cells down there and says, oh, I want to heal you, I want to heal you. Well, then your body says, wait, that's enough. Don't send more white blood cells, because if you send more, it's going to start attacking me. It's the anandamide that sends that signal back up to the brain and says, shut that down for a second. There are theories right now that there are so many illnesses that we are subject to in this 21st century that are due to anandamide deficiency. Why? Because in the last 100 years, since we outlawed cannabis and outlawed our consumption of cannabis, human beings have stopped using cannabis. But before 1937, we ate cannabis at forage. When the United States of America was first discovered and formed, ships from Europe came over with seeds of cannabis on them because the sailors ate forages made of hemp seed. Why? Because the hemp seed is one of the most protein-laden seeds on the planet. They didn't understand that they were literally fueling our body with something that we needed. And what we were fueling our body with were these cannabinoids that was fueling the endocannabinoid system, which has now been studied and studied and studied for the last 30 years. And the consensus among doctors is that's what helps to keep our bodies in what's called cellular homeostasis. And what does that mean? Cellular homeostasis means like the Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold, just right. It's just what you do when you're looking at the cells and you're looking at light. You see the blockages. Well, the cannabinoid system sees blockages and clears them so that the cells would operate perfectly. However, we've not been feeding it for 100 years. So this was something that was perpetrated against the human race because of greed. But the truth of the matter is that those cannabinoids, and when you're looking at not just THC, CBD, CBN, CBDA, CBC, there are so many CBG. There are so many cannabinoids that we're now starting to recognize because science is starting to keep up and catch up, that they have profound impacts on almost every form of illness that human beings suffer from. There's new and recent research out of Australia that shows that combinations of cannabinoids, including THC, have profound impact on the ability for pancreatic cancer cells to replicate. There's research out there right now that shows that CBD, CBC, and maybe even CBG in combination with a little THC might be able to block the spike protein of the SARS virus. As a matter of fact, they've proven that it blocks the spike protein's ability to enter our cells. Go out and study this and understand that we as mammals were meant to consume this plant, and this plant is meant to help heal us. And the research is available. It's out there everywhere. Look at it.
Well, thank you, Montel, because the use, I know I work with CBD and I understand its power and intentions and to help heal cancer for one thing in this powerful way because of this endocannabinoid system. And I really just wanted people to hear this from you.
How about this? I have MS. I was supposed to be in a wheelchair 13 years ago. I have not gone one day in the last 20 years of my life without consuming. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. That's a lie. I went 2 days about 3 weeks ago, the first time in 20 years that I didn't have any CBD in my body. Why? Because I ran out and didn't buy the bottle ahead of time. So that was a dummy on my part.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. You be well. You take care. And again, I hope people keep reaching out to you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.